They play against Breanna Stewart. She goes to the line 14 times. Asia Wilson goes to the line 13 times. And Aaliyah Boston can't play 20 minutes in a game without being on the bench in foul trouble. That's another problem that we're dealing with. But like I said, this year, it's not just Caitlin Clark. If you wear that Indiana Fever jersey, consider it done. The refs are not going to be fair, and they are going to cheat and do whatever it takes to do what the higher-ups say.
All right, let's pause right here for a moment. That last statement from the higher-ups, it's something that almost every other sports channel seems to be completely overlooking. While most outlets have been focused on the obvious headlines, the injury to Caitlin Clark, the fan backlash, and the so-called disaster that unfolded at the WNBA All-Star Game, you and I, as narrative analysts, know there's a much deeper story hidden beneath the surface. What you just heard, that's only the beginning, because what we witnessed over that weekend wasn't merely a chaotic series of unfortunate events. It was, in fact, a strategic declaration of war. Today, we're going to connect the dots and peel back the layers to reveal a much more intricate plan. Specifically, how WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert might have engineered this entire crisis, not by accident, but as a deliberate tactic designed to give her leverage in what is shaping up to be the league's most critical confrontation yet, the upcoming collective bargaining agreement negotiations. This situation isn't simply about one injury or a disappointing game. At its core, it's about power, money, and control. If you're here because you sense that there's more going on than what meets the eye, then do us a favor, hit the like button. It's a small action that signals to the platform's algorithm that we're asking the tough questions, the ones everyone else seems to be ignoring. To truly grasp Commissioner Engelbert's strategy, we first need to break down the official story, the one the league and mainstream media want everyone to accept without question. According to the public narrative, the sequence of events is as follows. On July 15th, during a game where the Indiana Fever faced off against the Connecticut Sun, Caitlin Clark, the Fever's star player, suffered a right groin injury with less than a minute remaining. 2 days later, news of her injury went public, and suddenly, the entire All-Star weekend in her hometown of Indianapolis was plunged into turmoil. Financially, the impact was immediate and severe. Ticket prices on the resale market, which have been holding strong at an average of $262, took a nosedive, dropping more than 75% to just $64 in a matter of hours. The minimum entry price for tickets crashed from $121 down to $65. This is the version of the story you've heard repeated across sports networks and social media. A fan boycott, a financial disaster, and a league in crisis, all because their biggest star was sidelined. It's a tidy and straightforward narrative, which is precisely why it serves as the perfect smokescreen for a far more complex power struggle happening behind the scenes. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. There's a key piece of information that simply doesn't align with this official account, a critical discrepancy that, once examined, causes the entire story to unravel. While media outlets and content creators were busy highlighting the supposed fan boycott and posting screenshots of collapsing ticket prices, they missed a crucial detail happening inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. According to the league's own records, attendance at the 2025 WNBA All-Star Game was reported at 16,988 fans, a complete sellout. Take a moment to let that sink in. How does an event described as a financial disaster, with tickets being offloaded at steep losses, simultaneously sell out in full? These two realities cannot both be true. This kind of contradiction is exactly the puzzle narrative analysts thrive on. It signals that we need to filter out the surface noise and dive deeper. Who exactly were these nearly 17,000 attendees? If genuine fans, those who paid hundreds of dollars per ticket specifically to see Caitlin Clark, were panicking and selling off their tickets at rock-bottom prices, who ended up purchasing them for almost nothing? Were the tickets quietly handed out to local youth camps and community groups to avoid the embarrassment of empty seats on live TV? Did corporate sponsors snap up large blocks at last-minute discounts? The key point is this: a sellout crowd did not just appear out of thin air amid a crashing secondary market. What this suggests is a calculated, behind-the-scenes effort to control the optics of the situation. The league had a vested interest in projecting an image of success, regardless of the harsh financial realities playing out on ticket resale platforms. When you see this level of narrative management, you have to ask, what is the league trying to conceal? This effort to tightly manage the storyline becomes even more apparent when we look at the words and actions of the person leading the charge, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, the league's top general in this ongoing war. The stage was perfectly set for a decisive leader to rise. The league's biggest star was off the court, sidelined by injury. Players and coaches, like Indiana Fever's Stephanie White, were publicly criticizing the officiating, blaming it for the injury that cost Clark her participation. Fans were outraged. Media outlets demanded answers. This was Engelbert's opportunity to demonstrate strong leadership, to reassure stakeholders that the league was listening and ready to ACT'd SO when a reporter confronted her directly about the disconnect between the players' feelings and the officials' calls on the court. Engelbert's response became a key moment.
You know, as a fan of sports for 60 years now, I know that, no one's ever happy with officiating. All sports deal with it, but we're working hard to make sure we're putting the best product out on the court, and our officiating then follows that.
No one is ever satisfied with officiating. Let that phrase linger for a moment. At first glance, it might sound like a typical corporate non-answer, one of those tone-deaf replies that many have already criticized. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert described her meetings with frustrated players as productive and constructive, which, in executive speak, often means no real solutions were reached. However, when viewed through the lens of a deeper power struggle, Engelbert's words reveal something far more intentional and ominous. This wasn't a careless slip or a simple PR misstep. Rather, it was a carefully calculated assertion of authority. By dismissing specific, ongoing complaints about player safety and reducing them to a generic, universal sports issue, she was sending a pointed message, not to the fans, but directly to the players' union. Essentially, we hear you, but we don't care. Your anger won't shape league policy. The league office is in control, not you. This wasn't about solving a problem, it was a power play designed to keep the players in line. And this maneuver shines a spotlight on the real conflict playing out beneath the surface. What exactly was this deeper conflict? While most eyes were glued to Caitlin Clark's injury, many missed the single most important act of defiance during the entire weekend. A move by the players that confirmed this situation was never just about officiating. AS Commissioner Engelbert prepared her dismissive statements. The players were quietly preparing their own response. During pre-game warm-ups, many players wore shirts emblazoned with an unambiguous message: "Pay us what you owe us." This was no subtle hint or casual grievance. It was a deliberate, coordinated public protest directed squarely at the commissioner and league office, and the fans in the arena, who supposedly only cared about Clark, echoed the players' sentiment. When Engelbert appeared, chants of "pay them" erupted from the stands. This, right here, is the true story. For those who analyze narratives, this moment cuts through the noise and highlights the real battleground. The drama surrounding Clark's injury, while significant, served as the perfect cover for the players to launch their own offensive. By commandeering the league's biggest marketing event of the year, the players sent a powerful message about their value, not just as athletes, but as critical stakeholders in the league's future. This wasn't merely a complaint, it was a clear line drawn in the sand. The players were telling the world, and more importantly the league office, that the next conflict wouldn't revolve around foul calls or officiating standards. It would be a fight for financial fairness and respect. This was the opening salvo in the war over the upcoming Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA. That protest wasn't random, it was perfectly timed. The players understand something that many fans might overlook. A ticking clock is counting down to the most significant showdown in the league's modern history. According to league documents, the current CBA expires on October 31st, 2025. For those analyzing the narrative, that expiration date changes everything. It's the key that unlocks the entire puzzle. A new CBA means renegotiating the league's foundational terms. This is where the real money and power are divided. We're talking about fundamental issues like salary structures, the players' share of league revenue, travel conditions that affect health and well-being, and crucially, the rules around player safety and officiating standards, the very issues that led to Clark's injury and the officiating controversy. In other words, the officiating crisis is not just a problem, it's a bargaining chip. Suddenly, this season's controversies no longer seem random. Instead, they look like deliberate posturing. Every press release, every fine imposed for criticizing officials, every statement from Engelbert, and every unified player protest forms part of a strategic campaign to build leverage ahead of negotiations. This isn't just about renewing a contract. It's a battle that will define the financial future and core values of the WNBA for years to come. So, if the players' move is to publicly demand what they're owed with protest shirts, what's the commissioner's counter? This leads us to the heart of today's analysis. The commissioner's gambit. The theory is this: Cathy Engelbert isn't merely failing to address the officiating crisis, she's weaponizing it to gain an advantage in the CBA talks. Consider this. By refusing to take a strong public stance in protecting the league's most valuable asset, Caitlin Clark, Engelbert allows a narrative of chaos and instability to take root. This narrative suggests that the WNBA's record-breaking growth isn't a sign of sustainable league-wide success, but rather a fragile bubble that could burst if its star player goes down. Why would she cultivate such a damaging narrative? For leverage. From a purely corporate negotiation perspective, framing the league as unstable is incredibly valuable. When the players' union enters negotiations demanding a larger share of the league's profits, Engelbert can counter by pointing to the All-Star Weekend chaos and ask, are we really in a position to give more? Or are we one injury away from total market collapse? In this way, the Clark injury is reframed not as proof of the players' collective value, but as evidence of the league's fragility. It's a cynical, high-stakes tactic, but one designed to suppress the players' bargaining power. This is a manufactured crisis meant to keep player demands in check and preserve the existing power dynamics, where the league office and team owners hold most of the cards. Now, this is where we dive even deeper into the murky waters of speculation and back-channel rumors. There have been whispers circulating on social media and among certain content creators. Unsubstantiated allegations suggesting possible financial connections between Commissioner Engelbert and some referees. To be crystal clear, these claims have no concrete evidence behind them and remain pure speculation. But in the realm of narrative analysis, even the existence of such rumors is telling. It reveals just how fractured the trust has become between players, fans, and league leadership. Whether or not the rumors are true, their presence fits neatly into the commissioner's gambit. If the goal is to control the narrative and diminish player leverage, what better way to do it than exert influence over the officiating at the center of the controversy? This would imply a level of control extending beyond boardroom negotiations into the game itself. Do you think where there's this much smoke, there must be some fire? Or is it all just a carefully constructed distraction? Share your thoughts and theories down in the comments. But remember, this conflict is not one-sided. While Commissioner Engelbert maneuvers in this high-stakes game of corporate chess, the players aren't passive pawns. They've launched their own coordinated counterattack using every weapon available. Their strategy is to bring the fight into the public eye. Coaches like Stephanie White have been outspoken all season, highlighting the uneven officiating and calling out the physical double standards players face. By speaking openly, they refuse to let the league office control the narrative. Next, their use of visible protests, like